Hey, it's Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to the Black Belt Leadership Podcast, where each week I'm giving you tips, tools, insights, and resources to help you become a better version of who you are and what you do as you discover, develop, and deploy your own unique Black Belt leader within. Maybe you've heard the term hole in the wall, but have you ever wondered where it came from? Well, it's got its origins in 17th century slang. Now, that description was usually used to describe a dark, secretive, or illicit place like a brothel. Now, today the term has a variety of meanings. When you talk about a hole in the wall in the United Kingdom, it's an ATM. Here in the United States, it might be a tiny or unpretentious or an obscure restaurant or bar. Now, where I grew up in the South, a hole in the wall describes a location that may not be physically appealing, but the food, the drink, or the service is definitely worth seeking out. So today, I want to talk about the hole in the wall, but I want to do so from a different perspective on this traditional colloquial phrase. And I want to start by posing a very simple question. What's your hole in the wall? And how are you uniquely solving the problems that you encounter in everyday life? Now, if you know McDonald's, it is an incredible franchise, but did you know that McDonald's began its career as a drive-in barbecue stand? That's right. Back in 1940, the McDonald brothers, Richard and Maurice, opened up a barbecue stand in San Bernardino, California. Now, the brothers were affectionately known as Dick and Mac, and they had recently moved from New Hampshire. When they originally arrived in California, they opened a hot dog and an orange juice stand before launching into the car hop industry with their first drive-in restaurant. Now, their very first aha moment when they came to realize that this traditional car hop service model and the large menus that they offered to their patrons was very inefficient. They believed there was a better and a faster way to deliver food, so they closed and completely revamped their restaurant in 1948. What did they do? They embraced what we know today as assembly line food prep. They had self-service walk-up windows, and they streamlined the menu, really shrinking it in size to maximize speed and to lower prices. They revolutionized what they called the speedy service system, offering a very simple menu, a 15-cent hamburger, French fries, and a soft drink. Now, by 1954, things were going great, and along comes Ray Kroc, a milkshake machine salesman. He notices the McDonald brothers are running 8 of his multi-mixers simultaneously. He was stunned as he discovered and saw the relentless efficiency and the sheer volume of business this one single hamburger stand was generating. So he convinced Dick and Mac to let him become their very first national franchise agent. So Ray Kroc opened his very first restaurant under McDonald's Systems, Inc. in Iowa, April 15th, 1958. Now, Kroc's aggressive approach to expanding nationally, this clashed with Dick and Mac's desire to remain a very small mom-and-pop type business. So the tension ultimately led to the brothers selling the company's trademark and their operational rights to Ray Kroc for $2.7 million, 1961. Now, that same year, Ray Kroc launched Hamburger University in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. The goal? To train franchisees on strict quality control, fast and friendly food service, and high standards of cleanliness. And by the way, to continue to refine the process. Now, under Ray Kroc's leadership, the company expanded nationally. By 1967, 6 years after he purchased it, McDonald's has gone international. They were now opening stores in Canada and Puerto Rico. Today, McDonald's operates more than 40,000 locations across more than, get this, 100 countries. They've truly become a global powerhouse and have revolutionized the fast food industry. But did you know the early iterations of the McDonald's restaurants didn't have a drive-through? Do you even know how the first one got started? Now, lean in close because this is where the story gets good. Dave Rich bought a McDonald's franchise that he opened in Sierra Vista, Arizona. And shortly after opening, the restaurant began to experience a decline in sales of nearly 50%. Now, why did this happen? Well, this location was located near an army base, Fort Huachuca, and the soldiers there had been prohibited by a mandate from leaving their vehicles while they were wearing combat uniforms off base. They were also restricted from entering any local business if they were wearing fatigues. So this one mandate cut Rich's business in half. So Rich's solution, I love it. It was brilliant and it was simple. He simply cut a hole in the east wall of his Sierra Vista McDonald's locations. He slapped a sliding glass window into the hole that he cut, and he built a very small menu board and nailed it outside the restaurant. So now the soldiers could drive up, they could order food, and they could receive that food without having to exit their vehicles or to enter the establishment. So this became McDonald's first official, unofficial drive-through, and they started serving customers using the drive-through on January 24th, 1975. Now, this concept of the drive-through spread quickly, not just across McDonald's, but other industries as well, and it revolutionized global fast food. Do you know today more than 70% of all McDonald's sales throughout the United States comes from the drive-through? Now, Dave's simple solution, a hole in the wall. He identified a problem, and Dave Rich uniquely found a way to solve it. Now, in 2005, Disney introduced the world to a futuristic movie called Robots. It was a world comprised of robots. And one of the central characters in the movie was a brilliant, good-natured robot, and his name was Big Weld. Now, Big Weld had a television show, and in that show, he took his robotic viewers on tours of Big Weld Industries. And it was there he explained how the inventing process worked. He challenged and encourages the robots watching his show to believe in themselves, come up with good ideas, and be willing to share them with the world. Now, one of Big Weld's classic lines, which became a prevailing theme throughout the movie, was simple and it was profound. 6 simple words that we can all use to govern our lives. See a need, fill a need. So what do the McDonald brothers, what do Ray Kroc, Dave Rich, and Big Weld all have in common? Well, each of them, you guessed it, they saw a need and they filled it. See a need, fill a need. Now, this is something that you and I can do. Any of us can do, because every single day we have an opportunity to see a need and fill a need. Every single day presents us with an overabundance of opportunities. The challenge with those opportunities, they often show up disguised as challenges. So what set apart Dick and Mac and Ray Kroc and Dave Rich and even Big Weld, what set them apart from everybody else is not only that they saw the problem, because that's the obvious part, but what they did was not just see the problem, but they creatively looked for a solution to turn that obstacle into an opportunity. What I love about these individuals is they weren't content to simply see things as they were. They continually asked themselves, well, how do we make things better? How do we make things faster? How do we make things more accommodating or more efficient or more effective or more profitable? And once they saw how to do that, they didn't ask anybody for permission. They simply took decisive action. They utilized what I call the hole in the wall framework of success. Now, this is a very simple but a highly effective 4-step process. And in my evaluations and studies of highly effective people and highly effective organizations that have been successful, what have they done? They've used this simple 4-step process to turn impediments into innovation, to turn obstacles into opportunities, and to turn roadblocks into new streams of revenue. Now, again, the good news is that you and I, anyone, can use this proven framework to uniquely solve a variety of problems that other people tend to overlook or ignore. This is where we have an opportunity to experience success that others miss out on. You know, mathematician Gregory Pellman said it well. He said, he who solves the most problems makes the most money. So how many problems do you want to solve is going to determine how much money you're going to make. So let me introduce you to the simple 4-step process I call the hole in the wall framework. The H is for hunt for friction. The O, observe the real need. L, look for the smallest or simplest solution. And E, execute and evaluate. So let's dig a little deeper and let's start with the H. Now, every breakthrough in business and in life simply starts most of the time with some type of irritation. It's often that annoying little thing that continually impedes our ability to experience the level of success that we want or desire. For Dick and Mac, what was it? It was inefficient fast food processes that didn't serve the customers well. They had to wait too long. The status quo process that they observed, it was slow and it was cumbersome. And for people that were on the go, it was frustrating. So the friction point for the McDonald brothers was very simply inefficiency. Now, for Dave Rich, it was a little bit different. For him, it was more of a logistical problem, and that was based on a military standing order. And that order restricted his ability to serve the men and women in uniform that were all around his McDonald's location. Yes, the soldiers did want to eat at this establishment. They wanted hot, fast food served inexpensively, but the protocols that existed on the base prohibited them from making that happen. So the friction point for Dave Rich was logistics. He had to adapt a process to get the food to the soldiers who couldn't leave their vehicles. Now, let's pivot to another industry that you probably know and hadn't thought about. So, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, he saw the current system at the time of delivering goods to consumers as very slow and very inefficient. The status quo model required that consumers order directly from a vendor's website and then wait days, sometimes weeks, for those items to be delivered. So for him, it was, again, slow and inefficient, a system that could be changed. Now, for Garrett Camp and Travis Kalanick, if you don't know the names, they're the founders of Ubers. For them, their friction point was inconvenience. After finding themselves in Paris on a snowy night, and they struggled and failed to be able to hail a cab, and then a few weeks later spending an excessive amount of money on a private driver for a New Year's Eve event, these two individuals wanted to build a smartphone app that would let any individual request a ride with a simple tap from their phone. So think about it. Hunting for friction can be as simple as asking common sense questions of the audience that you're serving. It might be simple questions like, tell me what it is that frustrates you. Tell me what takes so long that you wish you could do faster. Tell me what it is that you complain about and wish there was an answer to. Or maybe it's tell me about what makes you say there has to be a better way. The opportunity for you and I to uniquely solve problems and become successful in doing so, those opportunities are often hiding inside the frustration that people are feeling. So success is going to come from removing these obstacles many times rather than adding features. So rather than asking, well, what can we add or what can we improve upon? Maybe the better question is, what can we remove and what can we make simpler? So this is the friction principle. It's removing the sticking points so things can run more smoothly. Now, Tesla embraced this mindset, and they did so with a minimalist approach to building automobiles. So rather than trying to make their cars more complicated, they chose to simplify the process. That which was inessential was removed. So the traditional key fob went away. They replaced it with a mobile app. The blinker, the gear, and the wiper controls were replaced with buttons on the steering wheel. And most of the climate and dashboard controls were all consolidated into a central touchscreen. Now, you've got to remember this. Success often comes from removing obstacles rather than adding features. So once again, rather than ask, what can we add or what can we do to make it better? Maybe the better question is, what can we remove and how do we make it simpler to make it better? So as you're hunting for the friction points in your life or in your business, you should ask simple questions. How do I remove confusion? How do I remove delays? How do I remove complexity or inconvenience or uncertainty from my life or from my business or from my customers? Because the easier you can make success for other people, the more valuable you're going to become. Zig Ziglar said it well when he said you can have everything in life you want if you're willing to help enough people get what they want. So hunting for friction can be one of the easiest ways to do just that. Well, let's move beyond the H to the O in the hole in the wall framework. So the O happens when you and I take the time to observe what I call the real need, the root of the problem. Now, I'm not talking about the perceived need, which is often the symptoms. What I'm talking about is identifying the true underlying issue that's actually causing the friction. Now, most people solve symptoms because symptoms are easy to see. Symptoms are everywhere. You know, a fever is a symptom of an underlying infection in the body. A flashing fuel light on a dashboard is simply a symptom of an empty gas tank. And in business, high employee turnover is often a symptom of poor leadership, a non-competitive compensation arena, or it's a toxic work environment. Here's what I can tell you. Successful people don't solve problems. Successful people identify and they solve real problems. Solutions anybody can solve, but successful people lean in and solve the real issue. You know, going back to our earlier example, the soldiers didn't need a better hamburger. They needed easy access. Customers didn't need more menu choices at the existing fast food restaurants. What they needed was faster service. Did you know that 50% of all businesses fail in the first 5 years and only 1 in 3 make it to 10 years? Now, if you do the research, many of these businesses failed because they attempted to solve the wrong problem. Far too many of them are attacking symptoms, not the root cause of those symptoms. It's kind of like hacking at the limbs of a pervasive tree that just keeps growing and getting in the way, rather than simply attacking the roots of the tree and cutting them up so the tree doesn't grow back. You know, if you want to know what it's like to be a true problem solver and not a symptom fixer, you got to look no further than Toyota. Now, Toyota Motors implemented what is famously known as the 5 Whys, and they use this to identify and observe the real needs within their organization. So it starts with the symptom and then asking why the symptom exists a minimum of 5 times. This allows individuals to go beyond the system and get to the root of the problem. You got to remember, you're looking for the cause, not the effect. Successful people focus on finding and fixing the root of the problem. They don't get fixated on the fruit of the problem. Cause, not effect. Now, the L in the hole in the wall framework is very simple. It's looking for the smallest and simplest solution to the real problem. You know, Dick and Mac didn't need to add more things to the menu. In fact, they simplified the process. They limited the food choices and they focused on delivering hot food fast and inexpensively. Dave Rich didn't redesign McDonald's. He didn't build a new restaurant. He cut a hole in the wall. Jeff Bezos didn't start by competing with other vendors. He started by creating a common platform that they could all use to reach a larger audience, and then working with Amazon's infrastructure, get their products to consumers faster than before. You know, here's something all 3 of those individuals have in common. Sometimes the best innovation isn't something bigger or more extravagant. Sometimes it's something smaller or simpler. Maybe it's as simple as cutting a hole in the wall. You know, many people overlook the opportunities, staring them in the face because they're so focused on looking for some revolutionary idea, they miss the opportunity to bring a practical, simple solution to a problem. So don't miss this. Small improvements can often create massive results in your life and in your business. So if we're going to implement the L in this 4-step process, it's very simple. It's asking questions like this. What's the simplest fix that we can do right now? What is it that we can remove to make the process simpler or easier? How do we streamline what we're doing, or how can one step become easier, or does that step need to be removed altogether? Now, the E in the hole in the wall framework is to execute and to evaluate. Now, why is this important? Even the greatest ideas that you and I may have, they have no value and they make no lasting difference until we implement them. You know, I think Scott Adams said it well. He said, good ideas have no value because the world already has too many of them. The market rewards execution, not ideas. And Michael Dell, famous for the Dell computers, he echoed those sentiments when he said, ideas are a commodity. Execution of them is not. Now, think about the individuals we've talked about today. Dave Rich didn't hold a meeting. He didn't task his team with creating a 12-step strategic plan. He took simple action. He took a saw, he cut a hole in the wall, slapped a sliding glass window into that hole, and he nailed a menu to the wall. And then what did he do? He watched to see what would happen. So execution and evaluation always follow a very simple process. First you test, and then you measure. And then after you test and measure, you make adjustments, and hopefully that improves the outcome. And then you repeat and refine, and you do that process over and over again. This is black belt mastery. Because remember, action creates feedback, and feedback creates improvement, and improvement creates mastery. You know, in the martial arts, advancement isn't just about learning hundreds or even thousands of techniques. It's about learning to eliminate wasted motion. It's about becoming efficient and effective with what you have in your arsenal. A white belt, as an example, may use a dozen movements to take down an opponent, but a black belt may use only 3. It's about removing complexity. It's about eliminating friction, and it's about enhancing efficiency. Remember, action creates feedback, and feedback creates improvement, and improvement creates mastery. Now, we can use this very same hole-in-the-wall principle, and we can apply it to leadership, to business, to parenting, to communication, if I can get the word out, and just about everything that we do in life. It's about constant refinement and repetition, becoming a better version daily of who we are and what we do. You know, mastery is the art, many times, of making the difficult seem simple. Remember, Dave Rich didn't need a new business model. He cut a hole in the wall. This simple innovation not only transformed his business, it transformed an industry. Ray Kroc and the people that followed it continue to refine the process that the McDonald's brothers started, and now they've taken fast food globally. So somewhere around you is a frustration that's waiting for a solution. Somewhere around you is a need that's waiting to be filled. Somewhere around you is an opportunity that's waiting to be seized. So the question you have to ask is not whether opportunity exists. Opportunity shows up every single day, often disguised as a challenge or an opportunity. The real question you need to ask is this: what is your hole in the wall, and what are you going to do this week to create it? That, my friend, is what black belt leaders do. Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, thanks for joining me. Have a great day.